From Variety, celebrating more than 119 years covering the business of entertainment, this is the Award Circuit Podcast. Abbott Elementary executive producer Justin Halpern remembers the industry notion that comedy was dead before the success of his show proved everyone wrong.
We were also told network was dead when we pitched the show, and we're still on the air. It may be dead, but we're there among the corpses.
I'm Michael Schneider. On this bonus episode of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast, we share the 3 conversations from last week's Variety Emmy FYC event, A Night in the Writers' Room. Some of the biggest producers and showrunners from this year's top contenders in drama, comedy, and limited series are here, and it's all next on this edition of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. Stay close. Kicking things off at A Night in the Writers' Room, Variety's Emily Longeretta hosted a wild drama series panel, including Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann from HBO's The Last of Us, Dan Erickson from Apple TV Plus's Severance, Dan Fogelman from Hulu's Paradise, R. Scott Gemmell from Max's The Pitt, Ben Watkins from Prime Video's Cross, Barbie Kliegman from Fox's Doc, and Ashley Lyle and Bart Nickerson from Showtime's Yellow Jackets.
We have 4 first-season shows on here and 3 returning shows. So I kind of want to talk a little, kicking off, about the differences and the pressures of kind of launching a new show versus returning. Dan Erickson, I want to start with you.
Hello.
Hello. What was it like for you this time around, bringing Severance back after the first season was such a hit?
It was definitely bad. In that it was very scary. I really sort of thought that this show was going to be a much more niche thing than it kind of turned out to be. And I was comfortable sort of playing in that nerdy sandbox. And when it blew up into something a bit bigger, and I realized that people were going to invest time and energy and love and excitement into it, by all accounts that should have been an upper, and but there's a lot of there's just a lot of pressure that comes with it.
Yeah.
You want to do right by those people, and that said, we obviously took a while to get back. It took us a number of years, I've been told, but once we were actually back and shooting, and the words, I could hear the words coming out of the actors' mouths, it was pretty quickly, the panic started to go down. It was like, okay, we can actually do this again. And then I thought that the 3rd season would be super easy, and it's not.
Is it tougher? Does it get tougher, or does it get easier? Like, was it tougher launching the show to start?
It's easier in some ways. We certainly being able to write with the actors', voices in your head is extremely helpful. And I do feel like now, now that we're writing it, I feel like we finally have a sense of what the hell the show is, like what it was actually always trying to be. And so, the pressure keeps going up, but you get a little bit wiser every time, and that does help.
Okay. Craig, Neil, same question for you guys. I mean, after such a huge hit with season 1, and of course, we already knew that there was a huge audience for The Last of Us. I mean, the game obviously drew such a big audience, but going into 2 and knowing you were about to take on something that may be controversial, how did you guys feel? I'm trying to be really political about this.
What are you talking about?
I don't know.
Yeah, what happens?
No clue. I mean, there may be a bit of a change.
That wasn't the part that was scary to me.
Yeah, what was?
The part that was scary to me was that, so there's this thing that happens when you're making the first season of something where you truly are just rolling down a hill on fire, and if you stay alive, that's a huge achievement. If a show comes out, that's amazing. And it did. The 2nd season comes with so many expectations. And we did learn a lot of lessons. And the problem with learning lessons, as you know, is then you have to be accountable to those lessons. And you're not allowed to make those mistakes anymore, which is tragic. And you do feel pressure to somehow fulfill what people want, but also surprise them. You know that some people are going to like it, some people aren't going to like it. You're now a topic of discussion, whereas before you were just new and surprising. I mean, the bar for video game adaptations was pretty low. We had that going for us in season 1. Now we kind of fucked ourselves.
Yeah.
I think what made it easier for me seeing Craig panic on a daily basis, that made it easier. But yeah, doing a second season is kind of like doing a sequel for a video game. It could feel very scary because now, when we made the first game, people didn't know what to make of it. Kind of like when we did season 1. Now, game 1 was very successful. We did game 2, and that was so scary. And people had very strong reactions to whatever controversial story decision we made.
Yeah.
So then doing it a second time, I just really enjoyed seeing Craig running in circles on fire.
Yeah. He did a thing, everyone lost their shit, and then I had to do that same thing. Because he did the thing. I love doing the thing. I thought it was great.
Craig, I think last year, probably a year ago to this day, we were on the stage talking about this, and you were like, I'm scared.
But that's every day for me, no matter what.
So I guess the same thing I asked Dan. Do you feel less scared going forward now?
Oh my God, no. No, I'm terrified still. But I think that's probably a good sign. I think that, look, there may be a healthy person up here. I don't suspect there is. I think the reason we're up here is because we're terrified that we're going to fuck it up, and so we try our hardest, which is not healthy because you do end up kind of burning yourself on these things to make them great. But I'd rather be scared and give it my all than be kind of vaguely satisfied. Meh, that was good enough. Moving on, So, yep, that's what we do for you. You're welcome.
All right, going to you guys, Ashley and Bart, coming up to you. Going into this latest season of Yellow Jackets, yes, please. You obviously had it mastered, but does it get easier? Would you balancing these different worlds, or less stressful, or more stressful?
No. Not even a little bit. I mean, we're about to go into season 4, and I was hoping someone here would tell me that there is a point at which it gets nominally easier, but it does not sound like I'm going to find that kind of comfort on this stage. I mean, it's everything that they said the first season. You're just trying to stay alive. And the second season, you're thinking, oh, this, niche little show. I genuinely, I think we all thought that, teen cannibal madness crossed with middle-aged female rage would be fairly niche. And then you have these expectations going in, and then, season 3, it's the expectations upon the expectations. And at a certain point, the one thing that has gotten a little bit easier is, I think, not the fear of fucking it up or the fear of failure, but the fear that you won't make people happy, because at a certain point you realize you can't make everybody happy. So you just have to realize you will make some people happy.
Yeah, please, yeah. Bart?
Yeah, it got, it's just always been easy. Just having a good time. Pretty confident that we're geniuses. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it takes me an hour to write an email. A thing that gets a tiny bit easier is, one is, especially just on the same show, people have a little better idea of what you're talking about when, when you're explaining something, it becomes easier because they maybe trust you marginally more than they did kind of in the first season. And then I guess there is just being used to the process and how it's going to feel. That's just it doesn't make it easy. It makes it a little bit more familiar. That's just okay, this is what it feels like to feel I kind of forgotten how to write kind of in the middle of the season when they're kind of waiting for your pass on something, or just kind of feeling this is going terribly. It's just because you have a little bit of familiarity with that sensation, I hope it's better, but, it's not.
Well, I mean, anyone can take this, but so many of these shows do take these giant risks. I mean, we talked about this season included a big death. Yellow Jackets every season includes a big death that we never see coming. How much of, I guess, fan reaction, viewers' comments are you guys reading, and does that impact writers' rooms? And this is for anyone who wants to comment on this, since you guys have all been doing this.
I try not to read it that much. I do, but I try not to. But it makes its way to you. The servers, the bartenders at the Black Cat at Silver Lake, they let me know what they think about that season finale, and they were not happy. And I did not get my drinks as fast, and I still don't.
Maybe
I have to agree. I after my first show, I said I will never read another review in my life. And I've been pretty good about that part of it, but listening to other people, that's a different thing. And for example, Cross this year, season 1, just by the way that when it dropped, plus there was a strike, plus there was all this other stuff. That show, season 1, dropped after we had already written and filmed season 2. Yeah. So I'm sitting here watching the reaction to season 1. And I'm like, oh, shit. They're like, we love this dynamic. And I was like, oh, maybe we should have had more than in season 2. But I think, it's even if you get it, even if you do take some of that in, ultimately, you just have to respond to where your gut is taking you. Because in my experience, if you don't do that, no matter what, win or lose, you're going to have some regrets. So I just try to block it out. Although I did make the mistake just today of bringing one of my sons into the editing room. We're cutting an episode that's at that point everyone was saying, "Oh my God, it's so good." And I was like, "Dash, what did you think?" And he was like, "I like parts of it." And I still haven't recovered. I still have not recovered from that.
That means he likes parts of it. That's a good thing. Those are good.
I know, and that's what
parts.
he tried to say. He's putting a good spin on it. He's like, I said I like parts of it. I like most parts of it. Oh. I was like, no, that doesn't make me feel better.
Neil, Craig, do you guys read comments, reviews?
I do not.
No.
I do too many.
Yeah.
You do? Okay.
I find the worst, the most hateful.
Oh, okay.
And I'll listen to like a podcast where someone's just shitting on it for an hour, and I'll go on a jog listening to it, and it fuels me. It's weirdly like it gives me like I want to prove them all wrong, or there's like so. Yes, to answer Craig's question, we're all very unhealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't handle it at all, and I also have arrived at a place where I do feel like online discourse is exciting for the people that are involved in it. And I comment on all your shows, don't get me wrong. But there are millions and millions of people watching these shows, tens of millions of people watching these shows around the globe. And if you concentrate on the people who are motivated to talk about the shows online, you are concentrating on a segment of that audience. You are overprivileging a certain audience. Because it's rare for me to hear the things that seem like that do filter through from other people. Other people may have other things. Like, the big complaint mostly that I've gotten is, why did you kill Pedro Pascal? And I keep explaining, we didn't kill him. He's a man. He's alive. He's fine. And he's in literally everything else. So I don't know what the problem is. Like, okay, but fine. That's a reasonable complaint. And that is more common than some of the occasionally you'll get somebody will figure out your email and you'll get, here's my 20-page thesis on why you fucking suck. And I'm like, I'm not, I sent it to Neil.
Yeah, he'll listen to it.
Yeah, he'll love it. Yeah.
I mean, it helps that we have a roadmap. Nothing will deviate us from this roadmap. We go on these detours. And sometimes there's interesting stuff like people wanted to see more or less action. And if the feedback resonates with our own instincts, then you listen to it. If it doesn't, you have to dismiss it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Barbie, let's talk about Doc. It was such a fun show, and I think it's heartbreaking and touching and stands out from so many other shows on TV, and obviously based on an Italian series, inspired by a true story. How did you go about crafting this to make it stand out and make it different than everything else?
Well, I had Hank Steinberg, which helped. But I think that, but I think we both responded to the Italian series because it was so different from anything else. I've been a medical TV show fan forever. My first job in Hollywood was as an assistant on ER. So, yeah, I'm old. But so I've always loved it. My dad was a doctor and all that. But to watch that show and to see, what the character had to go through in terms of the accident, remembering and forgetting the last 8 years of her life, and not knowing that she's divorced and not knowing that her son died, doing a medical show through the prism of that person who has to start all over again, that didn't feel to me like anything that had been done before.
Yeah.
Except by the Italians, but nobody here could see that one, so we were good. We were in the clear.
So it's fine. It definitely feels fresh and new, and the cast, it's incredible.
I know. We really lucked out.
For sure.
I've been doing this a long time, and we really lucked out. All of them, every single one of them. But yeah, I think the other thing that's interesting is every medical show is mostly about the characters that you're filtering the medical stories through. And so even when the medical stories might be the same or similar or have it's still the character is unique. And so the way the story is told will always be a little different. So you don't feel like you're rehashing anything that's been done before.
Absolutely. Scott, I feel like this is a normal...
I feel like Barbie rips me off all the time.
I do.
I'm kidding.
I feel like I have to go to you now because it is such a beloved genre, the medical drama, and this is proof on a panel that it can be done in so many great different ways. So for you, getting into the Pit, what was that for you? How did you say, okay, I want to set this apart from everything else?
Well, I also was on ER with Barbie, so if that makes you old, I don't know what the fuck that makes me. So I was a little hesitant to go back to that genre because, you do it and you want to do something different, but came an opportunity, and so, what can we do that we haven't done before? It was mostly about what we hadn't done before, so that was exciting for us, and, we came up with this idea to do it in one day, and I know, the guys had done it on 24, so there was proof of concept there, and it was challenging for sure, but now, we embraced it, and I, they said, well, are you going to do it the same way again? And I'm like, well, I would think so. Why would I change now? So
it works. Why not?
Yeah. So no, and that's sort of. That and really trying to, one of the things we really tried was, no music, which was, a bit of a battle, but I think that makes a big difference. And really looked for all new faces. And, trying to find actors that people don't really are familiar with who are also very good that's a challenge. But, if you can do it and you're patient, it pays off, I think.
It definitely paid off.
I guess based on what Scott just said, we now have to do Doc as one day for season 2.
Okay, great.
We only have 22 though, so I don't know how we do that.
A 22-hour shift might be a little tougher, but maybe you can do that. Dan, I have been trying to come up with a way to segue to Paradise, but there is none. None of these shows have anything in common with Paradise.
There's no doctors in Paradise?
What was that?
There's no doctors in Paradise?
Are there doctors there? I don't think so.
I honestly, I don't know.
There's a shrink.
I want to talk about this is such a different show for you, and it jumps between these timelines that I think is so interesting, which is, of course, something that you do masterfully. But why do you think that works so well for Paradise? And what was that? Was that from the original jump? You wanted to make sure you went back and forth?
It's something I like to do. I think it was in the conceit early on. I think my initial impression was to do something that you thought was one thing and then learned that it was obviously something else. And the way to do that would be to play in time. The shows like Lost was a real inspiration. I always loved in those early seasons of Lost how Damon and those guys would tell a human backstory in the midst of a real sci-fi kind of thing. I think Craig and Neil have done it really artfully in different ways in their show, and it's something I've just always been a fan of and wanted to try and do. I would like to say on a serious, like, Craig, if I send you a 20-page email, just fucking tell me you got it.
How did you get my email address? I have changed it so many times. You pedantic motherfucker.
I was 40. I cut it down.
Well, that's new.
But yeah, I think I like playing in time in a show like that where I liked in this particular show it being a propulsive kind of fun ride for the audience where they're trying to figure out what's happening and the past storylines meeting up with. It's not rock. It's been done a zillion times, but that was something I thought was good for our conceit of the world having ended and then showing the world before it had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you, and I had asked this earlier to the others, but do you read, do what people say impact the writer's room for you?
Not really anymore. I mean, I do read it. I think more than I care to admit, probably. I don't know why, because I don't really care, but I do read it, and then it really upsets me, so I guess I do care. I mean, I have a pretty open process with my writers. We take all of our scripts collectively, and we just beat the shit out of them in front of one another constantly. It seems like a wonderful open process until your writer's PA is giving you notes for 4.5 hours. But I think it's useful to read a little, only in that hopefully you can channel it and not let it affect what you're doing and stick with the plan. It is nice to hear you are making things for people and you like to know if it's hitting the way you think it's hitting. You kind of only have your gut to trust, but then you have your family, as the guys were saying. Like I have a stepmother who will say, like, she's from Long Island, and she'll say, "Danny, let me ask you something." Do you think people like the episodes without the president as much as they like the ones with the president? That's the way I like it's catch, you know. So yeah. I mean, I like to listen. I once had a conversation with Ben Stiller, actually, because I had made a film that I was really inherently just wildly proud of, and that was one of my favorite things I'd ever written and done. And it was just a catastrophe. I mean, on every level, it just didn't. The reviews were terrible. The response was terrible. And all you can have is your own internal meter, right? Like, and you have to say, like everybody here is saying, trust your gut, put out in the world what you want to put out in the world. And it's challenged when you have moments like that, especially, I've made a lot of stuff that was received like shit, and it was shit. But when you're putting stuff out and you're trusting your gut, it's complicated, you know? I raised a little boy during COVID, and I remember, because you're making these things and you're thinking, this is great, I love this actor. Are people going to like this actor as much as I like this actor? And I remember we raised a little boy during COVID. He never saw the world. And then one day we had to put him in school, and I was like, I wonder what people are going to make of my son. I think he's great, but I think I'm partial, you know? And so you have to, it's a challenging thing in this environment to make stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Including people.
Yeah, people. Anyway, they didn't like him. No, he's great. He's wonderful.
But also, does this mean that because of your stepmother, James Marsden will be in more episodes next season?
He will be in more episodes. I got to make her happy. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Dan. So I'm here to ask the important questions, guys. Okay, Ben, let's talk about Cross and how you were able to adapt multiple books into one show, because I think it's a different thing that, as someone who has read, I think almost every James Patterson book there has been, if that's possible, definitely every Cross book, but what was your approach to that? Because it's different than just adapting one book. You're adapting kind of a series and based on the characters. Yeah,
I think the short answer is, at some point I decided that adapting any one of the books was going to be a mistake. Part of it was because the series started in the early 90s. And part of it was because, there was some political legalities going on with who had the rights to which books. And while that was being, negotiated and talked about, and actually James Patterson called me separately and said, hey, there's some things going on with the rights. And he was ready to play all the games that were going to get him paid, but he was telling me, whatever book you want, you can have it. But I had already started down this path of, well, what if I came up with my own story? Because I had started going through the books, and I started thinking, well, a lot of these are set in a time where I don't know, I'm either going to have to do a period piece or I'm going to have to take something that's not going to be as relevant in today's day and age. But these characters are relevant. This world is relevant. These relationships are relevant. Let me take all of that. Let me take what are some of the tenets of the Alex Cross series, like these really dynamic serial killers and these incredible characters that get pitted against each other, and being able to break POV to your villain is another one. And I said, let me take all of that and put that in my own story. And so we decided to make every season of Cross sort of be its own book. It's its own book. In fact, they're talking about now doing a special edition of Cross books that are based on the series seasons now. Wow. So, which is really cool, and it also may be lucrative for James Patterson. But I think I might get a cut of that. But that was the original impetus, and it really freed us up. And I did have one moment where I was a little nervous about that, because you got a guy who's written almost 30 books, and this is his he refers to Alex Cross as his second kid. So it's really precious to him. So I'm calling him up saying, hey, man, I love your books, but we're actually going to do our show based on original ideas. And his response was actually, I love that, because it expands the world for us. And then as we were able to deal with a story that felt much more timely, and that was another thing, as soon as everyone saw that, they bought into that as, the strategy.
100%. Well, has there ever been a time that he's said to you, this doesn't feel like something Alex would do?
Oh, yeah. No. One time, my favorite one was when, I was pitching something. I said, well, I'm going to do this one sequence. And he said, And he said, I guess that could work if it was good. And I said, Jim, I'm never going to sit down at my computer with the intention of writing something that is not good. But ultimately, it really became a great relationship with us, because he really supported a lot of things I wanted to do that I felt updated the character and expanded what had already been on screen, but also expanded what was in the books. He really actually supported those efforts, but he also kept being a great beacon for us, because even to the point of saying, here's some North Stars, because I'm expanding a character, I'm giving him flaws that we haven't really seen, I'm making him go through these challenges and struggles that we haven't seen Alex Cross go through, and his only thing was like, do all of that. I just have two requests. Number one, whenever he's in the room, he's the smartest guy in the room, and number two, deep down in his core, he's a good man. Those are only two requests, and that was right in line with what we wanted to do.
Yeah, definitely. For everyone on the panel, I'm curious about planning, and Neil and we were just talking a little bit about this backstage, but when you're planning ahead, are you thinking of your show as this is the beginning, middle, and end? This is a 4-season show? Or is it more, we're going to keep going till we can't anymore? So I'm curious, because I think you all may have different answers. Of course, you guys have a roadmap, so it's a little different for you, right?
Yeah.
There's, we knew game one, when we made it, didn't know there would be ever a sequel. So it's more of a standalone story. So season one, we're like, okay, this will adapt game one. We hope we get to come back. If we do, we have a much more complex story in front of us with game two. And now we have this roadmap that we don't quite know how long that road will be and what kind of detours we'll go on, but we know the main stops and we know the final destination.
It ends.
Oh, okay. It doesn't go on forever.
Please
okay.
no.
I asked Dan backstage, I'm like, how many seasons are you doing? And he literally ran to the dumplings and stuffed them in his mouth to avoid
I was
answering.
hungry. but I did. Yeah, no, I think we know, or we're pretty sure that we know how long it's going to go. We didn't know when we started. We knew where it was going to go, but we didn't know kind of what the length was going to be. Yeah, it's we're pretty sure now, unless we can get that Pitt crossover approved, and then we'll go one extra season.
That would be so fucking weird.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah?
Do it.
I would watch that.
I would watch that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. We just like we like have a tendency to look kind of forward a lot, but a lot of it ends up just like collapsing and turning into something different. Like certain kind of major things stand, but like I feel like we have like a very kind of future looking process that's like, this thing, it could become that thing, and then it's like it all kind of changes, and so it's like I'm not sure. Like I kind of think you have to do it to like hone in on it, but there is a constant like sort of like revising, like kind of as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, when we originally pitched the show, we pitched it as 5 seasons. I think everyone on the stage knows that you kind of have to pitch it as 5 seasons. We were pitching this back in 2018, and you can be like, I don't know, here's the first one. Don't know if there are more. So, it is a constant kind of revision. We have an end point in place, but to get a first season is a miracle. To get a second season is a miracle. Every time you get picked up, it feels like just a little bit of magic. Like David Blaine just showed up and gave you another season of television. So we do have an end point in mind, but I think that, as Bart said, you're always just kind of seeing where you're at. What we do is we do think about things in terms of structure. So had season 3 been the last season, we would have been like, sorry, because it ends on a big cliffhanger. We knew we couldn't finish the entire story in 3. We knew that 3 was a big turning point season for us. Mm-hmm. And then luckily we get to keep going. So
I would have protested if that was the series finale, if we ended on that cliffhanger.
So I'm the only one with the illustrious network.
We love a broadcast show. Yes, absolutely.
I am going to ride this until I die. A network does allow for that, but I think what's interesting about it though is we have a lot of room to go with the characters, but I remember in season 1 I was very kind of psychotic about these are our tent poles. And Hank kept saying, you have to be Gumby. And I was like, no, these are our tent poles. And now I am so Gumby because I know that you have your tent poles, and then whether it's other people don't like your tent poles and they go away, or things generally have to move up. Everything just keeps moving up. And I hate saying this out loud because it sounds douchey, but the characters sort of dictate where they want to go. I still don't like saying that out loud, but it's kind of true. And so we make plans, but I know that they're all going to change. Yeah.
I say that constantly. Rethinking every interview I've ever given.
When I did my previous show, This Is Us, at the beginning it got really popular. At the beginning,
that's happy now.
That's my family. That's my family. Yeah, that's my family.
I'm going to send you a 20-page fucking.
Yeah. No,
anyway, go on.
But, no, sorry. But before that, my show Chernobyl. Yeah, thank you. No, thank you. It was hard.
Pompous
that one
piece
was
of
hard.
shit.
But when it got popular, I remember they were like, everybody started saying, how many seasons are you going to do? And I said, I have a 6-year plan for the show. We're doing 6 seasons. Yeah. And then they were like, okay, but I didn't have a 6-year plan for the show. But and I was like, oh, that works. If you just say it with authority.
You're sure.
So on my new show, they were like, how many seasons? And I told Star, I was like, we're doing 3 seasons of the show. We have a 3-year plan for the show. And they were like, okay. And then I was like, great. And then once you know, whatever it is, I could have arbitrarily picked 12, 4, 3,
Yeah.
and then you can kind of spread it out how you want to tell the story if you know what you're doing. And so I found that like until they tell me that doesn't work, I have a new show starting. I'm like, it's a 4-year show.
Yeah.
But I don't really have. I mean, I know generally how many episodes I want to do, but then once you have those markers, you say, okay, that's Act 1, that's Act 2, that's Act 3, and if you set that, it's a really lucky place to be, but it can be really helpful. But even if it's 10 seasons.
Right. Well, I mean, weren't you also the one who got a 3-season pickup at one point for This Is Us? So I think there's a little. I mean, that's a.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say.
Address that question.
I mean,
By the way, we love each other. I don't know what's happening.
I don't know. This is really,
Yeah,
we
haven't fun.
We haven't fought this much since the election.
I lose the end.
I really like.
switching gears.
I was waiting to see how long it would take for politics to make it into the panel. No, I think for me, one of the things that I found in terms of developing shows, the roadmaps really help me. And when I think about how far forward I can get, it usually is going to be, it usually just naturally lands with this character journey that I feel like I'm attached to is going to get me 4 or 5 seasons, maybe 6. And I use that for what I would anticipate going forward because it helps inform the story I'm telling in the moment. But what has also happened is thinking about what happened before. So, so my roadmaps usually will span about, 10 or 12 years real time for me, thinking about what fed into this moment and what's going to come next. And then the other thing I love to do, which I just started and now I kind of regret it, but I started approaching all the side characters as if there was going to be a spinoff. So I was like, oh, if you really try to develop this character to the point where they could justify a spinoff, that's going to make your show better. But then when you actually start doing that, it takes a lot of time. But some things really do come that are fresh out of that. And then if you do only have a 4-season plan, you have a lot of options for these spinoffs.
Yeah. It's smart planning. That's smart planning.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
You absolutely can ask.
Because you could do 365 seasons of a show.
Well, I mean, there's an aspect to what I do that is about that. I mean, maybe I'm just lazy, but when I get a show working, I stay there. And it's not just that I don't want to do something new, but part of what I think, like I write and produce and put cool songs in. That's what I do for me. What I do for everyone else is I give them work, and I have this family that, relies on me year after year. And so I will say, I did 14 years on my last show, and I would have kept going and was like, I will do this as long as you guys want to keep doing it. If you don't want to do it, well, I'll go do something else. But, I think when you get something working and you're keeping people employed and you're keeping people employed in California, like there's I do take that, I do take that to heart because, when I get my crew members saying, hey, I'm having fun, let's just keep going for like 8 more years. And it's great because when a show goes a long time and you see the hookups, you see the marriages, the kids being more, it's like it becomes a real family. And so it's hard to walk away from that, even if I want to do something like these guys are doing.
Go ahead.
What's remarkable about Scott, though? He's also like, I'm neurotic. I think a lot of people here are, right? Well, Scott's calm, right? Yeah. So when he was running NCIS, right? LA. Yeah. And I was running Secrets and Lies, and I'd be sitting outside, like trying to smoke 2 cigarettes at the same time and eating my weight in carbohydrates. And like, he'd walk by, very calm. Everything was running smoothly. I'm going to go to the gym now during lunch, and then I'm going to go back. And I would just look at him like, how? So he's what I aspire to be. It's important. Yeah.
Scott, what's the secret? What's your secret to making that? What's your secret to doing this? I think Craig would like to know what the secret is.
Are you Jewish? Because I'm pretty sure that's
but I have
the secret.
representation that is.
Yeah. Don't be Jewish. Yeah.
I've been doing it a long time, and I also think, at the end of the day, I'm not saving kids' lives. I'm making a fucking TV show. It's like, it's Gilligan's Island. Like, if it's still on the air, 50 years after I'm dead, wonderful. But, I'm just so damn lucky to get paid not to have people shoot at me or run into a burning building or, if I mess up, what does it happen? It costs a few $100,000 at worst, It's not like no one's dying, so.
How is this possible to think that way?
Okay, you are kind of obviously right, but No, but the thing that we need to know is how you hold on to that perspective and frame when the void that lives inside you is threatening to just kind of eat everything you ever thought you could be, would be, or should be.
You've never tried ketamine?
Fair enough.
No, I think you get to a point, when you get to a certain age, you just become a grumpy old man. So you're like, whatever, this is happening. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm sure it'll be happening in 20 minutes. I'm going to go have something to eat, and we'll figure it out before the end of the day.
That's awesome.
Can we come hang out at your place after this?
I was just going to say,
Open
I
door
feel
policy.
cut to the green room, everyone huddled around Scott, and they'd be like,
Huddled around, we're going to murder him. He's too good to live. Let us take him down. Oh, yeah, right. Well, we do kill people, so it's what we do.
Yeah, that's
our
what
thing.
you're known for.
Yeah.
That's Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann from HBO's The Last of Us, Dan Erickson from Apple TV Plus's Severance, Dan Fogelman from Hulu's Paradise, R. Scott Gemmell from Max's The Pitt, Ben Watkins from Prime Video's Cross, Barbie Kliegman from Fox's Doc, and Ashley Lyle and Bart Nickerson from Showtime's Yellow Jackets. After the break, a Night in the Writers' Room comedy panel. From Los Angeles, this is the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. And we're back. It's the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. I'm Michael Schneider. We're sharing audio conversations from Variety's recent A Night in the Writers' Room event. And next up, it's the comedy panel that I moderated. That panel included Aaron Foster from Netflix's Nobody Wants This, Justin Halpern from ABC's Abbott Elementary, Sarah Naftalis from FX's What We Do in the Shadows, Tad Quill from Fox's Animal Control, Benito Skinner from Prime Video's Overcompensating, Jen Statsky from Max's Hacks, and Eric Legend from NBC's St. Denis Medical.
Hello, gang. So, no pressure. I heard a lot of laughs coming out of that drama panel. So, I know there's a lot of, drama versus comedy these days, but I feel like you can bring it. I feel like comedy is still on top. Comedy's back, is what they're saying.
It is so.
Broadcast is back, and comedy's kind of back, too. And I'm kind of serious. This has been a good year for comedy. And just in some ways, it feels like, you guys at Abbott were sort of riding that early wave of this new round of comedies that have hit it big.
Well, I think you're the first person who said comedy's back. So
we are bringing comedy back today.
Comedy's like funny again. Comedy's funny again.
Yeah,
but not
It
back.
got really heavy for a while. There was like things called comedies that weren't funny. They were like sad.
Wow.
Oh, God.
This guy's just bringing it. Let's just go there. Bear's not here. Can we
That's
say?
Chris Storrs.
Can we fuck up the bear? I mean, Hacks already did. Oh, shots fired.
Heated panel. Excited.
The energy's scary.
I'm honestly just still seething with anger that the guy from the Pit had to be funny. Like, fuck.
It's really not fair.
Sorry.
It's really not fair. But, in all seriousness, looking at the ratings this year, I mean, Nobody Wants This is one of the biggest new shows of the year.
Thank you.
That tells me that comedy is doing well, and it's coming back. St. Denis Medical, one of the biggest new broadcast shows of the year. Hacks just won an Emmy for Outstanding Comedy. Overcompensating, one of the hottest, best reviewed shows of the moment right now. Animal Control is about to do season 4, and Fox loves it. And What We Do in the Shadows defied all odds by getting multiple nominations over the years, and is a cult favorite, one of the most beloved shows on TV. Did I hit everyone? Oh, and of course, we bring it back to Abbott Elementary, which, of course, I mean, that's the show that I said was kind of bringing it all back.
Yeah, I mean, I think network. We were also told network was dead when we pitched the show, and we're still on the air. It may be dead, but but we're there among the corpses. Yeah, no, I think, there's a bunch of people out there who still like writing comedy, who still like making comedy, and we've found each other, and I always tell the writers it's like the zombie apocalypse, and we're in a room where there's food and beds, and there's like smashed bloody hands going up against the wall, but we've made it. So.
We really are bringing the darkness to the comedy.
Yeah, you should have started with me. I think that's good.
But I mean, and not only are you guys doing it, but you're doing it with how many episodes this season?
22.
22.
Don't applaud that.
I literally, that sounds really hard.
Sick to my stomach.
All I thought just now was you make so much more money than I do, but it's so much more work.
They're making you do that. You wouldn't choose to do it.
No,
right.
No, yeah, we're made to do that.
It's a sweet spot. I don't know what it is. It's not 22.
No, it's not. It's less.
Make it
15.
worse.
15.
And then,
Eric, how many did you guys do this year?
We did 18 last year, and we're about to go into production on our next 18.
Well, I mean,
that's a lot too.
That brings us to, close to syndication, which is still a thing, I think, maybe, kind of. We're going to bring syndication back next. Yeah. We brought back broadcasting comedy. Let's bring back syndication as well.
My agent says it's not. So,
your agent maybe is cashing some checks that you don't know about. So I would be careful with that. But Aaron, again, looking at the numbers, nobody wants this. It came during a time where there weren't a lot of comedies, and Netflix is building back up, and they've got a number of hit ones again. But nobody wants this. I think defied expectations and did really well. What was some of the reaction that you got?
Definitely defied my expectations. I didn't. Everyone had. I think this is sort of it happens a lot, but everybody passed on the show.
You mean nobody wanted this?
Yes.
Hey. Sorry, that was the lowest hanging fruit. You should fire me as your moderator right now.
No, this is a really, really easy room. You guys laugh at everything. It's amazing.
It's the best.
I feel like we're doing stand-up. It's great. Everybody passed on it, and Netflix felt sort of like an unrealistic place to buy it, and it was our last pitch, and I was sort of it was like a formality, do the pitch so they can say no, and then I go back to all the recipes I learned during COVID, and then they bought it, and it it changed my life, obviously.
Yeah, and it was pretty fast. It's one of those classic Netflix phenomenons where almost overnight everyone was talking about it, and that must have been crazy for you.
Yeah, it was. I had my first baby. My water broke during a music spotting session, and the show came out a month later or something. And I was sort of in that haze of being a new mom, and it was a great it balanced everything out for me because it was so crazy what was happening. But I was my brain wasn't really able to process it in kind of a good way, and it was crazy. When I watched the show in the edit, I didn't watch it going fuck. The biggest show of the year. I did not. I was I don't think my friends will make fun of me behind my back about this show, but that's the level that I thought it was at. It was it's cute. My friends won't make fun of me, but I didn't think this would happen. It's pretty crazy for me.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And again, that goes back to the narrative of you guys, should all be so proud of the success that you're having right now. Eric, St. Dennis Medical, again, broadcast, it's troubled, perhaps. Maybe it's coming back, but to have a hit new comedy show on a broadcast network, that's pretty amazing. How'd you celebrate? What was the reaction when you realized, we could be doing this for a while?
Yeah, the nice thing is that the bar has fallen so low that to be a hit, I don't know what that means anymore.
This is a therapy session.
Yeah. It's weird when you've worked in the business long enough to have been on canceled shows that would be a runaway hit now by the numbers they got 10 years ago. But honestly, it has been one of those experiences where so much came together, and a lot of that is luck. You just kind of get in with the right people, the right team, and everything feels like you're running downhill. And it sort of felt like, if this doesn't work, I don't know what's going to. So it was more relief than anything to be
okay, thank God this worked. I'm not insane. I can keep doing this. But now that we're about to start season 2, it is just like, it's weird. It's a joy. I'm grateful, but it also feels like you're in this weird bubble where I almost feel bad and guilty about having a steady job when it's just such an odd time. And I don't know, it kind of feels shitty. Is that like a...
You should feel shitty.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks. Thank you for affirming me.
How dare you have a hit show? That's terrible. No, it is. I mean, I get it. It's a weird time, but I mean, in some ways, that's why your comedies are kind of helping us through it to some degree. I'm sure you hear that a lot.
I will say I've now had a number of people say, hey, I watched this show with my mom and my grandma, and I'm just like, oh, there's multi-generational households watching our show and laughing together. And that to me is what TV was when I was a kid. That was the joy of it. So it's pretty cool to hear that from people that don't owe me the compliment. They don't know me. They're strangers. And that kind of feels the best.
Yeah. That deserves a clap. I think that's true with a lot of your shows. I mean, obviously with Abbott, that's a multi-generational show that families, watch together. And I'm sure you've heard quite a bit over the years from people who are like, this is the show I watch with my kid.
Not my family, but other families. I mean, it definitely is. I mean, there is, we'll get grandmas and young kids and kind of everybody. I still think that's the cool thing about network TV still is that you get a chance to at least get this giant broad audience that you might not normally get.
Yeah, and Tad's sort of the same thing because you have entryways for obviously workplace comedy. A lot of people who are just fans of Joel McHale, and then you've got those crazy animals that show up that I'm sure some people tune in for as well. So there's a lot of entry points. What do you hear from your audience?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. They really love the animals. Yeah, that's surprising.
That's the bane of your existence, right?
Yeah, I mean it's basically the whole thing is a way to get paid to watch animal videos online, for our research. That was basically the whole premise of the show.
Is that your casting process?
Yeah. No, the animals they're kind of a nightmare. But, but they seem to be entertaining for people. But yeah, no, I definitely feel the same thing about the multi-generations. And I'll be like, and I'll sometimes forget that and we'll have like a racier, storyline and, some dad I know will be like, hey, dude, I was just watching my 7-year-old. That's not cool.
Kids got to learn sometime.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a maturation process. I feel that. Yeah.
Well, did the animals get more and more difficult season to season?
Yeah, no, we've got some real prima donnas. No, they get increasingly fired and turned into puppets. Yeah.
Oh, so some of their quotes are out of control now. Yeah. Benito, or Benny, you said I could call you Benny.
Yes, go. Yeah, I love that.
Obviously,
that's hot. I love it.
We're friends. I mean, obviously, you have an interesting perspective, also starring on your show. So, What's the reaction been like so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's less multi-generational, definitely. People are like, I actively can't watch this with my parents, and I don't fucking want to. But I think I was worried about maybe some of the specificity of it, because I really was like, this was my experience in the closet. And so I'm like, if we open with George of the Jungle, is this like 2 on the net? Like, will everyone be like, what is going? And instead, I'm being met with so many messages from people who I think saw themselves in the show and maybe saw themselves not only in my character, but I think in this kind of nostalgic world of college and them kind of being able to like laugh at that cringe time in their life. And it just being like so embarrassing to go back to that time. But yeah, I think it's been really overwhelming and I feel just very lucky that I got to do it. So,
yeah, and it does. That's why it does feel so relatable. Have you heard from Brendan Fraser, by the way? Has he?
Not a word. No, he hasn't said a thing. But also, we kind of like allude to it, but we couldn't show it because Disney would have been like, no, like absolutely not. But nothing from Brendan. Brendan, reach out, love.
But you guys smartly got around that by having the DVD case.
Oh, yeah,
right?
No, we have the DVD case, like the music. I think the estate had to sign off on it. It was like the widow of the man who wrote the original, like, the score, I think, of the, like,
Did she know what she was signing off on?
No. We cut so much out of the pilot when we sent it to her. It was like, 12 pages. We're like, you got it, girl. You love it. It's about a straight guy. You're going to love it. You got it, girl.
Fantastic. So, Jen, of course, I alluded it to earlier, but you are a little bit of our incumbent of the year, and I know I've asked you this before, but that moment when you guys were named Best Comedy, there's proof, there's video proof of how the three of you your jaws were open. You were not expecting that, and it was such a special moment. What do you remember now about that night almost a year ago?
Yeah, I mean, it was so shocking. I know that it's like when people say they're shocked, you're like, but you were nominated, you knew there was a chance, but people were actively like, well, you're not going to win. Like
People are dicks.
But like honestly, and we were so genuinely shocked and surprised, and it was there's very few moments in life where you get shocked and surprised and it's positive. And so for it to be that is like, we feel so incredibly lucky. And I think the show we had been lucky to be rewarded before, and obviously Gene has been so rightfully, praised for this role. But I think the thing getting Best Series was so lovely because our entire crew felt it, and our entire crew has been so happy and proud that their work has been seen that way. And so, yeah, genuinely just so surprised and happy and grateful.
Now they're all gunning for you on the stage, though.
I was going to say, good. Now you guys can kind of like wrap it up, right? Though.
Like you're done now, right? One
like you did it.
Exactly.
We've been awful to her all night. It's like been really fun.
It's almost like the classiest thing you could do is just not even keep yourself.
Walk away when you're at the top.
Jen,
what else do you have to prove?
Jen brought her Emmy tonight. I thought that was a flex. That was pretty strong. So, Sarah, I got to say, you guys stuck the landing. It was, I know it's always a challenge. But you had fun by, in some ways, being very meta about it. And it's like, let's just talk about it. Let's talk a little bit about that idea and how you guys sort of came to the conclusion of how you're going to end the show.
Well, we waited until the absolute last minute to write it, which I think helped. It's a sort of a finale about avoiding ending things, and we wrote it while we were in production in Toronto. But I think one of the things we thought about was like, how do you end a series about people who literally don't give a shit whether things continue or not, which lowers the stakes. But we felt like having the documentary end kind of gave us an opportunity to essentially work through all the things we as writers were feeling about the show ending. So honestly, I mean, relief, shame, embarrassment, all these things, you're like, okay, at least it wasn't humiliating how we ended it, but we feel really good about it. So.
No, I like the stakes were high. So one person got it. See, this is why you're firing me as your moderator. But what was the kind of the pressure like? Was in the room and how were you guys feeling?
Yeah, I mean, we were in Toronto for production, and I think as it got closer and closer to when you really have to start making decisions, we seemed to be playing more and more pickleball to avoid it. But we had kind of like myself and Paul Sims and Sam Johnson, the three of us wrote the episode, and we had kind of like a solemn dinner in an awful steak restaurant talking about how do we feel and how could we make that what Guillermo feels as it works through. So it was like emotional, but I think our hope was that it would be funny, and that's why a monster fucks a bear in it.
That's among many things that happen. But I mean, you parody Newhart, Rosemary's Baby, and there's so much. And of course, talking about the documentary crew and how they're wrapping up after all these years. And that's interesting because a number of you have that that sort of documentary aspect of your shows, and so it's always kind of interesting how you recognize it, how you mention it. Some of you reference it more than others. What was sort of the decision in sort of bringing that in and making the documentary crew part of the ending of the show?
Yeah, I think part of it was, sort of the conceptual joke of the whole series is like making a documentary about an entire lifestyle that's supposed to be hidden. And it felt like in the final season, you sort of had to deal with that. And so we really wanted the finale to feel like we were just starting any old episode and have it feel abrupt and remind the viewer, like, you have been watching a documentary the whole time, and sort of reckoning with what that meant for the characters. But I think the other, honestly, fun part of it was a lot of the documentary crew that you see in the episode are just the crew of what we do in the shadows. And so it was a really nice way to kind of, I mean, at the end, you really just see Anna and, you know, our DPs and all of that. Like, you get to see them be a part of this show, which they very obviously were a huge part of the last 6 seasons.
Yeah, and apparently Guillermo was effing a good chunk of them, according to the finale. So
who knows what the love triangle was, but it was one of the crew members that he was fucking. Yeah.
So, Justin, you guys probably talk a lot too about how much do we reference the crew. Every once in a while, your characters will talk to the cameras or will talk to the crew people. What is sort of the rules in terms of how much the doc is a part of the show?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we try to imagine that each character has a different relationship with the cameras. Like, Gregory doesn't like the cameras. He doesn't want them following him. Ava wants every camera on her at all times. So we use it in that way, and we try never to use it to just get pipe out because it's so easy to do that, but that's mostly what we do. But I think, for us, we referenced it in the first season, and we kind of like let it fall a little bit by the wayside. And then occasionally when we feel like a character's going through something really emotional and they might not want cameras there, then we'll use it to kind of make that point. You'll see the cameras kind of hiding behind something, or the person trying to actively get away from the cameras. But I think that's sort of how we use them.
And Eric, you have that sort of same philosophy, right? Of every once in a while, it's sort of, maybe a character will look, but how much do you sort of reference that?
Yeah, I mean, we actively use it to get pipe out because it's easy, but also I think that there are times that you want to sort of forget that it's there, and then there are times that it feels like there's an additional layer to the character sort of being in on the joke with you about something crazy another character is doing, or just about a situation they're in that feels, I think, very connecting sometimes. And the one I watch a lot of Below Deck, so one thing I like on that show is that
talk about it.
That they like, the producer will sometimes like poke with a little question and put them on the spot a little bit, and so that was something I wanted to do on this show, and we use it sort of sparingly, but I don't know. I like sometimes just a little bit of a prompt to make the character uncomfortable.
By the way, I feel like that is the hidden secret now of most showrunners, that they all watch Below Deck. I can't tell you how many people I talk to now. It's Below Deck, I think, is really inspiring every show.
If you have good taste, you're watching reality TV.
Yeah, completely agree.
But one of the things with the cameras is sometimes it's fun with the will they or won't they, and so that's where sometimes the camera will catch something that you're not supposed to catch, and that sort of furthers along. We saw that a lot, in the early days of the relationship with Janine and Gregory, for example. But will they or won't they is kind of a hallmark of everyone's show, and of course very much a hallmark of Nobody Wants This, because that's sort of what the show is. Ultimately, is this going to work out? So how do you sort of tease that, and how do you sort of, as you're planning, future seasons, like, where do we go with this? And you don't want to give too much, but then there still needs to be tension in those relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I really always set out to make a show about two people that you want them to be together and they make sense to be together. And so it's not really a will they, won't they, it's like, how will they? And so I'm really trying to make it feel like a real relationship that you would be in, where you have challenges and struggles, but ultimately the goal is to make it work. We want to make it work, and we are making it work, but it's just hard because all these small little day-to-day things keep coming in between us. And you have this sort of big overarching, obviously there's like this religious conflict, but it's not necessarily that he's so religious, it's just that their day-to-day life in that situation wouldn't work unless she was Jewish. So that is something we can always fall back on. Obviously, it's like a big conflict that they have, but at some point she has to convert and say yes, and those things have to move forward. And I think that Netflix has always had this, not always, I've done one season.
You've subscribed for years.
Yeah.
You probably. Yeah.
Our relationship has been going on for a long time.
Those DVDs in the mail.
No, their fear last year or this year was that if she says yes to converting, then like the show is over, kind of like you have to stretch that out. But as someone who did convert to Judaism when I got married, there are so many things that come up. Once you say yes to this thing, that's just the beginning, because then all of a sudden you're faced with all of these different philosophies and traditions, and you have to decide if that's something that you want to start for yourself, you know, in your late 30s. And so to me, I'm excited to tell that next step of the story.
Yeah, and yeah. For some of you, the will they or won't they sort of is at the heart, and then for some of you, it's more on the side, but sort of a fun thing that you can tease out for a while. Like Tad, you have a couple of will they or won't they's that you can kind of keep teasing out.
Yeah. Some are going to be teased out for a really long time. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like the emotional heart of the show, and I love having those arcs. I mean, like when you're trying to break stories and you have like a romantic triangle to go to or something like that, it just makes everything less terrifying.
Yeah, and it's that's one where like you know, do you listen to fans? Do you see like you know, if they want something, is it sort of more?
Yeah, like this year we have this couple at the center of it, Emily and Shred, and like the fans were like, yeah, it's enough already. Yeah, they should get together. Yeah, so
you actually take that cue and sort of push it along a little bit. And Justin, obviously, we mentioned Janine and Gregory, and you guys made that decision to sort of, you know, so at this point, maybe it was time to bring them together. And were there the concerns that, okay, well, then suddenly, what do we do with these two? Do we break them up? But people don't want them to be broken up. So how do we go from this point forward?
Yeah, I think enough people have like run into me that don't want them broken up that I wouldn't want to run into anybody else if we broke them up. But yeah, I mean, we tried to build the show, and it was important to Quinta very early on that the will they won't they wasn't the center of the show, that it felt like an ensemble. And so we hoped that when we actually got them together that it wouldn't be this like big letdown afterwards. And plus there was, you know, they're two characters in their late 20s, and so I think there's a lot of like growing to do, and just because it's both of their first real relationships, I think it was fun for us to be able to just write stories about like how do you exist in these relationships. Janine had only ever had sex with one person before she was with him. We make a big point of that in the show. So, you know, she really has like no life experience.
Yeah, and there are different kinds of because you know in Hacks, for example, it's less of a will they won't they. It's more the the core relationship between Deborah and Ava. Like, will this relationship like work? Will this friendship work? What's going to happen to these two women? Can they? Because there's been so much back and forth.
Yeah, we always said that the heart of the show is the relationship between Deborah and Ava, but it's always set on the backdrop of like what is happening with Deborah's career, what is happening with Ava's career, and so the different things that have happened throughout the seasons, getting late night, getting her dates cut at the residency, it always affects their relationship. So you are teasing out. It's not a will they, won't they in terms of get together, but it is a will they, won't they in terms of will Deborah allow herself to have one friend is essentially the question, and she's really fighting that for a long time.
There was a dream once where maybe they would be more than friends, but
it is a love story. Like the show is a love story between the two of them, and yeah, it's in Ava's dreams. Sometimes it's really a love story.
And Benny, for you, again, it's more like a will he or won't he in terms of figure out who he is and sort of become comfortable with himself.
Yeah, I think in telling a coming out story, I also thought like it's TV, so we have some time, not that much time. We'll see if I get to tell more, but here we go. But I liked that I could finally show maybe just how confusing this felt for me, and also have people who are not queer come to it and be like, that feels very similar to an experience of trying to find myself. And I think what I liked in what we were doing is like things would feel really scary to me. I'd be like, I don't know if I want to have that on screen, of like this kind of backslide and what it's like when you're in the closet, but you're also like homophobic, and what that does and how you treat people. And I think the collateral damage that happens and the pain that you put other people through because you're in pain. So yeah, I think that was something that I felt fortunate that we had time to play with, because I don't know if on screen I ever felt like I saw how complicated it was. And then I would just be like, okay, everyone else is just kind of like coming out to a really sweet mom. And the mom's like, I fucking love you. And then the dad's like, I got to download Grindr. You know, it's some like joke. And I'm like, I don't know. I did like awful things, and I still feel guilty about them. So I think trying to put that in the show so that other people could, I think, see that experience, and also, even if you're not queer, be like, yeah, that's what it feels like to grow up.
And what was that like for you to be so vulnerable and to tell that story? I mean, obviously, you know, been on social media and you know, and people got to know you, you know, through that avenue. But this is sort of a different way of expressing yourself. And what was that like for you?
I think at times in the writer's room, I tried never to think of like that I will be performing it at some point. And then I would show up on set and be like, why the fuck did I do this? But I also, I had a brilliant showrunner, Scott King, who kind of just guided me through it and is just like such a mentor to me. So I feel like I felt really safe with him. And I was like, I want to tell this story right, and I want to do it justice. And also the writer's room was a lot of people that I felt so comfortable with and loved the work of. And I remember like kind of pitching some things that I was like, I can't believe I'm revealing this to a room of peers and people that I respect. But I'm like, I did this. What if we did that? And I was like, actually, no, it's like, is that too much? And Jordan Mendoza, who wrote the 6th episode with us, was like, dude, it's your story. Fuck it up. And I was just like, well, I picked the right people. That's great. So now I lick a condom in episode 6. So that feels really good. Yeah. So anytime it was scary.
We did that on Abbott. Damn it.
Yeah. Oh, of course. I love that episode. Yeah.
That was that Blue Hulu only episode that you guys did. Well, Aaron, I mean, same thing. You're also telling a personal story. What was that like to sort of dig in?
I think that it was very complicated. I mean, I know it was complicated. When I sold the idea of the show to 20th before it was ever close to getting made, I hadn't been with my husband for very long. I mean, we'd been together for a year, but he had never really witnessed me as a writer because I was sort of like in between not knowing what to do next. And when I sort of casually said that I had sold this idea based on our relationship, he was like, no, you can't. You can't do that. Like, my parents are very private. They're immigrants. It's like psychotically not okay. And
they still haven't seen the show, right?
They don't know it's out.
Netflix is canceled. I don't know what happened.
No, it's amazing what success can do. Everybody relaxes and accepts it. But I became really scared because it was my livelihood and it was what I wanted to do. And I'd always written about relationships because those relationships weren't important to me. And I was writing about failed relationships and how I was failing in them. And then all of a sudden I was in a healthy relationship with a good person. And I thought, well, this isn't interesting to write about. It's not interesting to say, like, my family really likes him and, like, he's well-adjusted. And then I found this angle about Judaism, and I was excited to have something to be inspired by. And he was very scared. And so it took me, not proud to say this, 3 years to write the pilot because COVID happened. So I use that as an excuse, although I obviously had, like, a lot of time to write. But I just kept punting it because I was really scared about the happiness in my life finally happening and my career and how those things would coexist. And I felt like I sort of had to be in a miserable relationship with someone I was willing to expose, or I could be happily married and maybe just settle down and maybe not be a writer. So I really just didn't know that I could have both. And it threatened to... anyway, he's on board now. He's very supportive, and but like, there's some things where we have like a stupid like handshake we do, and I was like, oh my god, everyone in the writers' room loved our handshake, and it's going to be an episode. He was like, no, what are you doing? Like, is anything sacred? So I took it out.
Oh, look at that! But it is in season 2.
Yeah,
it's coming back. It is like that old, chestnut, write what you know. And obviously, Jen, this season with Deborah doing a talk show, you got to dig into that side of your career and bring back some of your memories of working in late night. What was that like? And kind of, Bringing back some of those stories.
It was
from
trauma
back in the
inducing.
day.
Is what I was like. Actually, this electric chemistry between me and Eric is happening because we started our careers together on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon in 2011.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So look at us now.
Look at you now.
Table every day
But we wanted this season. We wanted to like really. We always said like if season 3 was Deborah chasing her dream job, season 4 was underlined under job. About that, this would be like we wanted to paint a authentic portrait of what late night is, and we love the format. We think it's such an important part of American culture and comedy specifically, but it's also a really difficult job. It's such a grind. It is like one of the only comedy jobs where I would come in and we would write an incredible amount of material, and then at the end of the day at 5 p.m. we would have written 5 to 6 pages of jokes, and you're lucky if 1 or 2 get on the air, and then they all go in the trash and you start over the next day. And that's really, really daunting. And so I think we just wanted to like authentically portray that, show the difficulties that Deborah would also have becoming a late night host in 2024, 25, when social media is such a big part of it. And so it was fun to bring in some real life experiences from my time on the show, but also like really wanted to portray it as difficult as I found it to be.
And I want you to know that I am saving the season so I could spend a whole weekend just watching it and picking it apart. I'm so excited.
You're going to have a blast, brother.
Get ready for some PTSD, Eric. Well, one of the things, too, about this season that was so great about Hacks was we got to see so much more of Los Angeles since Deborah had moved to L.A. this year. And shout out, to shooting in Los Angeles, which a number of shows here on stage do, but also showing a beautiful side of Los Angeles. Some of those establishing shots were fantastic. What did that mean for you guys to get to show a little bit more of where you have been shooting?
Yeah, it was really, really special. We're very, very proud that we have shot the show since day one in Los Angeles. A lot of people would be like, oh, how do you spend months in Vegas? Do you spend weeks? And it's like we do a couple days in Vegas every season, and that's it. Our crew is based here. We feel really lucky to be here. It's really important to us to keep production here. And so it was really great to make a season that got to show LA, got to show, the backlot, the Universal backlot. And so it was really lovely and important to get to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It looked great. And also, Aaron, on Nobody Wants This, it really shows, especially the east side of LA, it's really beautiful to see. And it's sometimes things that maybe haven't normally been seen on a show. It's been fun.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in LA. I've always sort of thought LA didn't really have culture. And then I was like, there's stuff here that I want to highlight and show. And I tried to find parts of LA I maybe hadn't seen as much on. And the truth is that, shooting in LA is hard and really expensive. And we were only able to shoot in LA because Kristen Bell has kids here that are in school, and she's like, I won't shoot anywhere else. And they're like, well, then we're shooting where you want to shoot. And so we got very lucky that she wants to be home with her kids. And that really dictated us being able, well, she also wants to come to work, but she wants to live in LA. Like, she picks her kids up from school, and it's important to her. And like, we got to ride that wave. And then I pushed really hard to not use stages, which I think, some people were frustrated by, but I think it's great. Stages can obviously look amazing. There are shows I don't realize are shot on stages. It happens. But I think I was so nervous to not have the show feel like really grounded that I really begged to shoot on location. And it's a harder way to shoot. It's harder to do the company moves. It makes the days much tighter. But I feel really proud that we did it because I really love the way that the show looks. And I've shot pilots before where I wasn't proud of how it looked, and you can see the fake light coming through the window, and you're not really outside, and I just didn't want to do that again.
Yeah. No, and a show that looks great and looks, if you go to the set of Abbott, that school set looks fantastic. Shot in L.A., shot on Warner Brothers, but nonetheless really is a tribute to Philly, and that allowed you guys to do your crossover with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia this season.
Yeah.
we shout out to our production designer, who's incredible, Michael Whetstone, who has built an entire school inside the soundstage where they shot Tenet. We have like a giant soundstage. Yeah, the Sunny crossover was really fun. As most things that happen in Abbott, Quinta runs into somebody in a lounge and is like, you know what, comes in the next day. Here's what we need to do. And she had run into Rob backstage at the upfronts, and then she came in and she was like, we're going to do a crossover with Sunny. And I was like, did you tell any of the lawyers that? And she was like, no. And we hadn't told anybody. And then we were at Comic-Con like a week later, and she announced we were doing a crossover when we still hadn't told anybody, which is like a testament to her, because she just like is a force of nature, and when she wants something to happen, like she's gonna make it happen. And then we were fans of that show, and it's like, you know, longest running sitcom on TV, and so Rob and Charlie came into the room, and we just kind of got to have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Do you want to announce another crossover tonight?
We're all like, pick us.
Anyone here or?
Right.
Come back for one more episode of What We Do in the Shadows.
There are a lot of interesting crossover potentials here, so maybe we'll talk afterwards. But Tad, for you, obviously the show is set in the Pacific Northwest in the Seattle area, which is great for your star Joel McHale, who's from that area. Talk about infusing that kind of flavor in the show.
I'm very jealous of everyone here who gets to shoot in LA. It sounds incredible. Yeah, I mean, Vancouver is a good double for Seattle because the sun doesn't shine. It gets light at about 8 a.m. It's been great to shoot up there. The incredible crews. We're super psyched with it. It feels like a very natural double for Seattle. It's not tricky at all.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And Eric, of course, you shoot on the Universal lot, but you're doubling for Oregon. So talk about that.
Yeah, there was an idea to shoot the pilot in Portland, and I was kind of like, well, first of all, it's decidedly not Portland. It doesn't take place in the city. But more importantly, I just knew that I wanted to actively inherit the crew from American Auto. It was a lot of people I'd worked with even since Superstore many years ago. And there is such a huge benefit to working with people that you have a shorthand with, you know what they're capable of, there's a trust there. You're in a city where all the best people come to do their jobs. Why wouldn't we make something here with those people? And I think to Aaron's point, I think one of the hardest things, for me at least, as a new showrunner was you have to know the areas where you can fight for something. You don't want to become known as the asshole who fights on everything. But that was a big one, to be like, I have a family. I have 3 kids now, and I have my work family, and I'm making a show about a work family, and I believe in that. So I wanted us here, and it was like, I'm going to use all of my chips on this thing. And to Universal's credit, they were very supportive of it, and they let us do it, and it's really worked out for everyone. And so it's been great.
Benny, where did you shoot?
We were in Toronto. So we inherited all of What We Do in the Shadows. So thank you.
No,
thank you.
That's the crossover.
That's, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
So Vampires in season 2, perhaps.
Yes. Well, duh.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah, easy. Done. We'll write it in the car on the way home. We live together. Now we do. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, yeah, it was weird though. We were on a campus, and so at times it was, and they did have class like every now and then, so it would just kind of be like, well, we don't look the same age. I'm like, go back in your dorm. I'm like, shut your window. But it was great. It was great. But it'd be cool if we shot here. That too.
So Benny, I'm curious, going back to, since you are, sort of playing a character inspired by yourself, what kind of notes did you get from production? And was it ever awkward when they said, well, we don't know if Benny would do this? And you're like, I did this.
Yeah. Oh my God. I didn't get that many. I think it'd be more, sometimes I think in the writer's room at times, it would be like, I think I had sat with also my experience, but then these characters for so long, because I wrote this in like 2019. So it would be like someone pitches something and I'm just like, oh God. And like, when your whole body is like sick and you're like, I don't want this person to think I hate that idea, but we can't do that idea. Because but then I feel like at a certain point, I just started to like release it, and I wanted to be surprised and just like have these brilliant people around me be able to say like, what about this? And what if Benny does this instead? And that I think was where I was able to, I think, play a character and not myself. And I think that I feel fortunate for that, because it did feel more like writing somebody, you know.
I feel like it's almost harder for other people in the room when they know it's your experience, because they're so concerned about being sensitive to that and not offending you, because the lines between being the character and being the person, like, well, I don't know, that's so like slutty. And I'm like, okay, that's my story. I did that.
No, totally. I'm like, yeah, no, you're so right. I would never do that.
But other people seem to be more nervous about it than the person who's like clearly writing their own experience on a TV show.
All right, so I'm obsessed now with some crossovers, so I'm hoping we can make this happen. So maybe Abbott and Hacks next season. What?
Well, we kind of did a crossover in that we shot on your set.
That's right.
Episode 404, when Eve and Deborah go to the emergency room. That's the St. Denis Medical set.
Yeah.
Oh.
And in the
that's an exclusive.
That's the quote.
Hasn't even checked with the lawyers.
That's Aaron Foster from Netflix's Nobody Wants This, Justin Halpern from ABC's Abbott Elementary, Sarah Naftalas from FX's What We Do in the Shadows, Ted Quill from Fox's Animal Control, Benito Skinner from Prime Video's Overcompensating, Jen Statsky from Max's Hacks, and Eric Legend from NBC's St. Denis Medical. And now it's time for the limited anthology series panel, moderated by Variety's Jazz Tankay. This panel included Ian Brennan from Netflix's Monsters, the Lyle and Erik Menendez Story, Lauren LaFranc from HBO's The Penguin, Elizabeth Merriweather and Kim Rosenstock from FX's Dying for Sex, Olivia Milch from Prime Video's The Better Sister, and Nikki Toscano from Peacock's Long Bright River.
What I'd love to do is hear from every single one of you, like, what made you take on your respective projects? And Ian, I'm going to start with you. What made you want to take on the Lyle and Erik Menendez story?
Well, I had big shoes to follow, because this is sort of the second season of what began with Jeffrey Dahmer, and he's an odd cat to follow a bit. But you'd think that it's all just about like, oh, you just pick any like murder or murderer, and it really doesn't work. The show really, really needs a certain kind of subject matter where you there has to be a lot of pathos and not a lot of sadism, as it turns out. There's not. We investigated a lot of different, like, oh, we could do this or that thing, and some you're just like, ugh, no, like, and it's actually most stories of like horrific crime or horrific abuse or murder, just like they're just not that interesting, as it turns out. And this was just like an onion of like strangeness that the deeper you get into the story, the less you understand it. It was just great.
Love that. Lauren, what about for you? What about The Penguin that made you say, yes, I'm going to take on this?
Well, I was interested in the fact that they actually called me about it, because it feels like a thing. I know, not that I, but truly, because I think it's about like a very complicated, terrible man, and for me to be called about it was interesting to me. Because I don't think someone like me often is given that kind of opportunity to write a character like that, and so that was intriguing to me. I grew up reading comic books, and I was very familiar with them, but hadn't stayed with them for a while. And for me, I was most interested in the crime drama aspect of it, and the ability to tell a very psychologically complicated story about this man, and to be able to pepper the world with like interesting, complicated people, and to try to tell it from a perspective that I don't feel like a crime drama story following a man like that has been told from before. So all of those things felt like an interesting challenge for me. I'd never written a crime drama before, and I wanted to take on that challenge and dig into this strange man. However that sounds.
It's an incredible crime drama. Elizabeth and Kim, what about Dying for Sex? Because it was a podcast and obviously true story. What made you say, yes, this is what we want to do next?
You can call me Liz. I get so scared. When I hear Elizabeth, I'm like, oh my God.
You're like, am I in trouble?
Well, we were looking for all sadism, no pathos. No, we were. There's an incredible podcast that everyone should listen to called Dying for Sex. And a friend of mine emailed it to me, and I listened to it all. I felt like in one sitting, I was like in a parked car in a parking garage, crying.
Did not know that.
Yeah. And I'd been there for days. And it was just this like incredible story. Molly and Nikki's voices in the podcast just gripped me from the first moment. And the fact that Molly was so brave that she was willing to tell her story all the way till the end. I'd never heard anything like it, this mix of tones, that it's so funny and so huge and sad and also pretty horny.
So horny. That's right, Elizabeth. It's very horny show. Liz called me and was like, do you want to listen to this podcast? It's about a woman who's dying of cancer. And I was like, that doesn't sound like a fun listen. And then she was like, she also has a ton of sex. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. Send me the link, I'm in. And then, I called her right back as soon as I finished it. Same thing. I was like, oh, I've never heard anything like this. It didn't occur to me that you could have a sexual awakening while dying. And also, it was about so many things that seemed like we had never seen them like together at the same time. And it felt like this opportunity to tell this story about, someone who, like, just this idea of the sick body also being the sexual body, and to tell a story about women and friendship and horniness, and also write about something really real. And also we've talked about just a list of all the things that you're told nobody wants to see, we were like this, but that we all want to see. Like, it felt like this like dream, and I would do anything to work with Liz. So I was very honored that she asked me.
Yeah,
so good. I just want to talk about Dark. No, no, I think the material, we're very lucky when we get to encounter source material that really moves us. I think for The Better Sister, the book written by Alifair Burke, to me it was this notion that siblings get different versions of their parents depending on birth order. And particularly if there's a moment of sobriety, if a parent gets sober at some point in childhood. I was 10 when my dad got sober, my brother was 13, my sister was 15. And we had very different experiences and very different memories of what childhood was and how we moved through our adulthood with the sort of baggage and our conception of who we were and who our siblings were. And that is exactly what's at the heart of this story. And I think both my co-showrunner, Regina Corrado, and I, we just felt like that pain and that love, and how do you move through that difference when you compare those notes and still sort of find each other in a united truth as adults. And so, and also just sisters being bitches to each other is fun. I mean, let's be honest, it's fun. But I think that really was at the heart of it always for us, that love and that journey together, finding the truth.
What about for you, Nikki?
Mine was also a sister story. Little bit different, framed a little bit different. I think that for me, I'm a girl that does a lot of cop shows, a lot of murder mystery kind of shows, and I think that I co-created this with Liz Moore, and I think that what was so amazing about her novel is that it wasn't this typical cop drama, is that it was upending not only this cop as hero narrative, but upending this victim narrative. And for me, it was just, so undeniably unique for all of those reasons. It was like, how can we not tell this story? I felt like a responsibility to tell it for those reasons.
I think what I love about every single one of your shows and what makes it is the casting. Because if that casting goes wrong, whether it's the siblings, or, the cop, Amanda playing the cop, the shows wouldn't have worked. And Nikki, I'm going to start with you. How did you know Amanda was perfect to play a cop? You watch Amanda in her movies and you're like, huh? And then now she's in this and she's so good, especially episode 6 in that finale. Take me through the casting.
Well, Amanda's amazing. She's so game to do anything. And I think that, I mean, obviously Liz can also speak to this as well. And I think that The Dropout was like this, you know, this huge thing. I never, you know, I knew Amanda from Mamma Mia and I knew her from Mean Girls. And then I saw her in The Dropout and she so like undeniably transformed into this, you know, other being. And then, you know, we were looking for somebody that was like, just like so undeniably raw. And I think that Amanda has that as a person and also as an actor. Like she's really willing to like strip down and strip away from everything else. And we needed somebody that could have that was bringing this sort of, you know, she's, you know, this very, very petite character to bringing this, you know, weird sort of guarded cop. And she just sort of effortlessly, like, sort of just fell into those shoes. You know, it was pretty amazing.
Liz and Kim, I mean, you know, I know Michelle's an EP on the show, but like, talk about Jenny and Michelle because that dynamic is so much fun to watch. And again, if that didn't work, the show wouldn't have worked.
Well, Michelle told me that she auditioned for your
Really?
for Lyle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good. She would have been good. She could have done it. With the right wig. He wears a wig.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think we like. Yes, we never like dreamed that we would get literally any of these actors. I think every time somebody signed on, we were like, what? Like, and it kept just getting like when Sissy Spacek was like just it wasn't even like we were talking to her suddenly and she's like, when should I be there? And
the first time I heard her voice on the phone, I was like started to cry, but I had to be like, hey, hi, yes. It's like nice to meet you. It was like, no, I mean, it's real. Our cast is incredible, and Michelle. It's like the part asks so much of her, and never once did she say like, no, I can't do that, I won't do that. I mean, she just threw herself into it, and I don't know. I think Molly's story spoke to her so like immediately as well. The first meeting we had with her, she was just like, I can't get Molly's voice out of my head, and I think everybody, I don't know, everyone rose to meet her too. Like her passion kind of drove us the whole way through. And then Jenny was like, came in and auditioned, which was incredible. And Kim and I were in the room. And, you know, it was just one of those moments where you're like in the back of a room and you're like, well, that's it. That's the show. So.
And we like grabbed, I was like, oh, like it works. Like, you know, because especially like with the tone of this show, you need people that just like inherently understand it, so you don't have to really explain that part and you can focus on all the other stuff. And so we got so lucky that, I mean, everybody in our cast, but really Jenny and Michelle just inherently understood what it was about.
And they didn't know each other really.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I know that I work with actors, like that's what we do, but I'm still in awe of like how they seem like, I'm like, how do they seem like they're best friends? They were incredible.
Well, that's to your point, Olivia. Like, again, Elizabeth and Jessica have such, you actually believe they're related.
Oh, yeah. The first time we saw a picture of them together, we looked at each other, we said, are we geniuses? Because they're sisters. They are sisters. Apparently they've been told they look alike forever, but whatever. We thought it was our idea. But I think that's exactly when you see these people together. It's, you know, actors, they're so vulnerable, what they do, what they give of themselves, what they give to us as creators, to the audience. And then to see them live into that vulnerability as a pair, you know, and to go through this journey, this, you know, that they're moving together as one, but also they have secrets, but they've lived together and created their identities together and in response to each other. So watching the two of them build that out as individuals and together was such a gift and so fun. And also then we would just let them go sometimes, you know, and you're like, oh yeah, these two people have been stealing clothes from each other since they were 14. There's no question about that. I mean, that's, but it's, you know, it's,
you just pinch yourself when you get into those moments where you're like, oh, this is it. This is what it's supposed to be.
Ian, did you pinch yourself when you saw Cooper Koch and Nicholas Alexander like on screen together?
Yeah. It's weird. It's the magical thing about like performances and actors, and it's like I began my career as an actor. Now you could really like stress yourself about like what role you didn't get or you did get or whatever. And like I flubbed that line. It's like, oh my God. None of it is that. It's like someone walks in the room and they just are the person, and it's not even anything they really did. You're like, I can't even really describe what's different from that performance and that performance. But like, you got it, you didn't, kid, or whatever. It's just wild. And that was a big search to find the two of them. And then, but it's like a magic eye that comes into focus where you're just like, oh, that's it. And then it helps in the if you can do it early enough, you can write to it. Then you're like, oh, now I see who it is. Or like, oh, Javier Bardem's doing it. That's a cinch because like I just like picture him talking. I'm like, great. So it's a really almost a mystical like experience.
And Lauren, what about? I mean, we all know Colin, who is perfect as the Penguin, and what about Kristen? Talk about the search for her because she's phenomenal.
Yeah,
yes, you can
incredible.
applaud.
Yeah.
So
she deserves it. She deserves all the praise. She's really incredible. I mean, I am so grateful and lucky that I inherited Colin Farrell. Like he is so talented. It's insane, and then you're pursuing cast around him, and you're like, we have to find people who can stand up against him, and especially with Sophia, she's his antagonist in a lot of way, and that this very complicated relationship, and the character itself is very complicated, and she has to be able to pull off something deeply emotional, and you need to empathize with her, but she also needs a wit. And I think that really starts to narrow the field of actors who can go to all those full ranges. And I think previously, Kristen comes from theater, so she's done a lot of off-Broadway, weird, interesting stuff that a lot of people aren't familiar with. And in television and film, she's often played, someone who is like always off, but she's in a lot of comedies because she really has incredible comedic timing. And so for me, I was so drawn to that because I really think if you can do comedy like that and you have timing, and I knew she was already a dramatic actor and was really incredible, I was so interested in the range because Sophia has to evolve and change on a dime. So often, Anne has to be able to have this gravitas to her that makes Oz as a character terrified of this woman. And Kristen's like 5'2". She's a small, petite little thing. So she had heels that were really high. But she just, like, when we rolled on her, I was like, oh shit. Really took my breath away, took our whole crew's breath away. And I was like, this is really incredible, because when I was writing the character, she meant a lot to me, but I didn't picture an actor. I just knew this voice, and I knew what I was looking for and needed. And when Kristen came in, I was like, oh, yes, you. And then she took that role and ate it, and just really brought so much heart and pain to it that it just astounded me. And I was like, she's just making this better and better and better. And she really became this person. And also, just to say, I got to work with Deirdre O'Connell, who is just like a powerhouse. Oh my God. She is like so well known in theater and not as well known in film and television, which is so unfortunate, because she won a Tony in 2022 for this one-woman show. She's like just an amazing, beautiful actor. And then Renzi Feliz played Victor, and he was more of an unknown actor that we got to pursue and find. And it was such a pleasure seeing him play opposite Colin, which is like got to be the most intimidating thing, especially with Colin in this giant prosthetic. And man, did he stand his ground with him. And I'm just so grateful. I mean, I think we're all speaking to it. To have incredibly talented actors say your words makes all of us look so much better. Yeah. And you're just so thrilled to see that happen. And that's what really makes it come to life. And it's a privilege, honestly.
Yeah. Well, to your point, to Lauren's point, take me into the writer's room. Like, your cast comes together. How much does the script change depending on, who gets cast in whatever, in a particular role? It's for everybody in the panel, so whoever wants to take that, go ahead. Go on, Olivia.
Okay. I'm a serial hand raiser. It's been a problem since middle school. I just have that face. I think we were lucky enough that we got to write all 8 scripts before we took the show out, which is really rare. We had sort of written for one place, but then our producers were wonderful enough to allow us to write the back half. So when we brought the show, we sort of said, this is the show, to Amazon and to our actors. And there's a real gift in sort of seeing the completion of that vision. But then that's where the collaboration starts with your actors, right? Because, some of Lorraine Toussaint, who's in our show, who's fucking brilliant. You recognize her from Orange is the New Black, maybe. She was always in our mind when we were writing her character. So that was always who was going to be, God willing. But when you start understanding who your cast is, then you build a relationship with them in terms of the active creation of who the character is. So your ideas about it start to be infused with who they are, with their ideas about it, with what you're finding together. And that evolution and that living, breathing reality of the creative process, that's where the good stuff happens, when you're listening to each other and in it. And, there's obviously some moments where it's like, it's got to be this, right? It's really important that it's this. And then it's other moments where you get that improv or you want to play or you meet and you figure out where it needs to go. And that's the fun stuff. We were never particularly super sticklers, but we were super sticklers for making sure that our entire team knew that the best idea won and that we wanted that feedback and we wanted that collaboration, that the door was always open. And then when they would say the line wrong, we would look at each other and be like, they fucked it up. No, we never did that. We never did that. If they just said it right.
Go ahead, Liz. I see you wanted to raise your...
Ooh, you knew. I knew. No, what do I want to say? I was just nodding along because I feel like that's something that TV is that really special about TV is that, Jake Kazan directed the New Girl pilot, and I remember he told me early on, he was like, as soon as we cast these actors, just throw out any idea of the character that you have and just write to these actors, write to them. And I think that's what's this amazing thing about TV is you get to spend so much time with these actors to build a character and let it develop over hours and hours of story. I think we were not, I wish I was organized enough to have written all far from it. But we made the decision to not have all of our scripts. We were brave enough to not have all of our scripts. And it was this kind of good thing for us because we got to be in conversation with what was happening on stage and just sort of watching what Michelle and Jenny were doing and taking that. And honestly, we just kept putting off writing the last episode because we didn't want her to die, honestly. And so we just kind of
maybe spoiler alert.
The story. Oh yeah, she dies. Yeah.
But you should still watch it. You should still watch it if you haven't watched it.
Also, and in his show, there's murders.
Well, also
so you know.
But for our show, also that we had. It was inspired by real people. So what was interesting for us is there were all these stages of, let's just spoil everybody's shows. Forget it. No. But I think it was okay, they're the real people and we had their voices in our head. And then we had our writer's room and we had these amazing writers and everybody was bringing a different perspective to it, which was so cool. We had the greatest group and then
our writers were a cancer survivor, someone who'd lost somebody to cancer, someone who had chronic illness,
a caretaker. We had people with chronic illness experience. So we made sure that we had our blind spots covered because we had fart jokes and dick jokes covered on our end, but we needed a lot of help in the other areas. So we as a group then kind of created these characters who were based on the real Nikki and Molly, and then it got to that point where we were we're going to change their names, and then we were no, they're Nikki and Molly. And then it was Jenny and Michelle came along, and it was oh yeah, they're Nikki and Molly. And it was it kept building and it kept kind of evolving, but it was a really cool process to start with like these real people and then have these versions that then eventually coalesced once we had these real amazing people embodying them. But it was always based on the spirit of the real people, and it was a really cool thing I think about the show, that we could always go. They were our North Star, I think, that just the truth of the real story and the real experience.
Spoiler alert, isn't Nikki actually playing cousin number 2 in one of the episodes? Does she?
What? That's the biggest spoiler of the night. She plays cousin Sheila.
She has chilaquiles for Molly during chemotherapy. Yeah.
There you go.
So Ian, when you watch it, that's episode 5.
Speaking of episode 5, I'm assuming, were all your scripts done before shooting began?
This was super weird because of the strike. So we were trying to get Javier Bardem, who's a tough get, but once you get him, he's like all in. He's like the best. But he really wanted to understand that character. He's like, I'm fine with playing a monster, but like really got to understand. And that story was going to be in episode 6. And like the strike was like looming. It's like, oh shit, we got to like get him on board. And the issue with the Menendez brothers, because there's 2 of them, they both had stories that were of sexual abuse, but were broadly similar but quite different, because they were 2 different people, different ages, were treated differently. If one is to believe their story, which broadly do, that there was just... Anyway, the problem is you have to tell that story twice. You know, you have to tell, like, Lyle's going to tell his lawyer once, and then you got to do the same fucking thing again. And it was a real challenge. And I knew we were, like, staring down the barrel of it. This was going to be a problem. So the first, Lyle's the easier one in a way, because he was a little bit less of a naif. He was a bit older. He was just older, I think, didn't bear the same brunt. And the abuse wasn't still continuing. That's what was so weird about it. Like, according to their story, if they're to be believed, like, Erik Menendez was being raped by his father up to 2 weeks before the murder happened. Like, that's how recent it was. That's how bizarre, crazy the story is. How deeply disturbing trauma and abuse can be. Anyway, we had to tell this story twice. The first one was sort of easy because you're like, oh, you can tell this sitting down with a lawyer being like, oh, okay, when I was 15, blah, 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 flashback to that. But once you've done that, we had to be sort of careful we didn't want to do this sort of like, you know, Greg Araki did a great movie called Mysterious Skin that's about, sort of a definitive movie about, I think, like childhood sex abuse. It was just like a thing you watch once and then you're like, yep. That was it. And then, but he did, because he cast like real kids and in order to not like traumatize them, the kids got like their own scripts. Like they thought they were in a totally different movie about like cereal and stuff, like literally. And we're like, we're not doing that, not doing any of that. So it was enough of a challenge just to portray sex abuse at all in a way that didn't feel like, ugh, or a way that you could even really find some artistic aspect to even photograph it, whatever, but enough then to do it again. And so then I had the idea, and this was on a Wednesday, and the strike was on a Sunday, that I was like, my pitch would be, and nobody's ever done it, and maybe there's a reason nobody's ever done it, but it should be, and because Erik Menendez like testimony on that trial is, it's like watching paint dry, very difficult to watch because it's all a locked off court TV thing. But when he's talking about the sexual abuse, you cannot look away, and you literally can't look away because it doesn't cut away, so you can't like break the tension. So I was like, that's what we need to do. I want this to be, the whole episode is one side of a single shot that starts in an over that Ari Grainer, great actress, sits into, and we're on her back, and slowly over the course of 35 minutes we grow to an extreme close-up, and you never cut. And I was like, bleep. And then I thought, Ryan was like, he's like, I love that idea. Can you write, and I just finished the 4th one, to be like, whew, okay, like we got some before the strike, we can get Javier Bardem. And he's like, can you write it before the strike, and this was on a Thursday, and I was sort of like, oh, okay, it's only like the most challenging artistic thing I've ever but I set myself up for it, and then went to bed that night, and then couldn't sleep, and I was awake, and I was like, no, I'm going to do it now. So went downstairs, and then poured a very large glass of wine, and then wrote the episode in one sitting. No, it's wild. It's really, and it was it's one of those things where you're like, oh, actually didn't write it. I was typing it out, but something else happened, and then it never got edited. And then that's the ninth, I think it was the ninth, I forget which take they used, but it was, anyway, short story long, but it's the craziest thing. And it needed the obstruction of a strike. Absent the strike, that episode wouldn't have existed, or if it did, it wouldn't be as good, I don't think. Anyway, wild. Yeah, crazy.
There you go. And it's really an incredible episode to watch. Cooper's phenomenal in it if you haven't seen it. Nikki, I want to come to you because you actually directed episode 6 of the series, making your directorial debut. Another great episode because it was such a turning point for the character with everything that happens. I'm trying not to give away too many spoilers here. But talk about directing that episode, and also can we just give a shout out to your department heads and working with an all-female crew on the show?
Yes. I mean, that was the most... Hello? That was the most amazing thing. I mean, we did not set out. I mean, I'd love to be able to say, we set out and we were just going to be like, we're going to hire all females. That's what's happening here. No, that was not at all. We literally talked to a bunch of different people. Honestly, the women just won the fucking job. Sorry. So we will go there first. And then honestly, when, this was the first time where I was like, okay, I'm going to try to direct now. And thank God, Sony and Peacock were super supportive of it. And Amanda and Nicholas and Ashley and John Doman, all of them were super supportive of it. And, I am a showrunner that is on set all day, every day, much to my dismay at times. And my mental health. But it was a really nice experience because you are sort of cutting out, and I love the directors that I've worked with, but you're kind of cutting out the middleman. You can literally you can directly approach an actor and exactly what you have in your mind because you wrote it. And if you're, if you're thinking with any kind of visual sort of anything in your head, you know what you want it to be. So I think that what was so wonderful for me is that I was surrounded by an amazing group of women or men whose primary focus was to uplift women. My DP, Will Rexer. I mean, it's just lifted up all of these different people. Mona Fastvold, who was nominated for an Oscar for writing for The Brutalist. She was one of our directors. It was just an amazing experience, and I will say I love working with dudes more than any other person. If I could have been a frat boy at some point, I might have actually done that. But this was just such a surprising and wonderfully enriching experience, and all of these people that sort of came to bat for me and for the show, which was led by Amanda, who is just, honestly, just the best number one on anyone's call sheet. I don't know. It was just awesome. It was just, it was a gift.
Amazing. I love that. Dying for sex. The sex. How talk about striking the balance, because it is her sexual awakening.
What do you want to know?
But what is the balance between just, telling this arc of her sexual awakening, it's a true story, putting in the comedy because there's a lot of laughs, and then the emotional story that is behind it all? How did you even get that right?
I think
we went into it knowing that the tone was going to be hard. I mean, that was actually what drew, I think, both of us to it. And we decided to just focus on the humanity of the characters and really not try to think about genre that much. I would say the earlier episodes, it was nice to have the muscle I think we both had of writing comedy, because we could kind of structure the episodes in a kind of comedic way. And then it naturally happened that over the course of the show, those structures disappeared, and it kind of became a lot, tonally darker. But I mean, I think we just tried to really follow the characters and follow what they were actually going through and be honest. I mean, that's the most important thing, is just honesty and just, kind of allowing space for that. And that's what we tried to do.
Yeah, and I think that the sex in our show was always doing something for the character. She has this impulse when she gets this diagnosis that suddenly she just knows that somehow what she needs to do with her remaining time on this earth is get to understand her body and connect to it and figure out what feels good. And so it was always part of her story and part of her emotional journey. And I think that was, like, for us, like, a central element of the show, that the sex was never gratuitous. It was always helping her heal, actually, in some way, like actually connect to a part of herself or learn something about herself. It was always part of her spiritual and physical awakening that happens on this show. And so, and we also wanted it to be hot and sexy and all of those things, but I think it was always it was doing something for her. And it's all again based on the real
theater.
We talked about
because in a musical,
tell them, Liz.
In a musical, the song is supposed to take the character to a different place by the end. So we were like,
they're like,
every
song.
Sexual experience she has is like a musical number.
But also, it was really.
Don't you want to watch it more?
Does this now? It's really only 4 hours, Ian.
It's the first thing I'm doing.
You could do it. It's very, but also for us, I think we were like, okay, part of what this character is doing is she has this radical acceptance of all these different ways that sex can look like and feel like, and ways that you can experience pleasure. And so we needed to have that bravery in our writing and in the filming of it. Like, if we cut away where shows normally cut away, we are also having shame around what we are talking about and what we are showing. And we wanted to make something that reflected the character's outlook on
And we
sex.
never wanted the joke to be on the person who was having that desire. It was always, the comedy always had to come from, just the weird goofiness of being a person in the world,
but never about what you wanted or what brought you pleasure. Right. And I think we wanted to we worked with this amazing sex researcher and this amazing woman, Emily Nagoski, who wrote this book, Come As You Are. I don't know if anybody knows, but it's amazing. Highly recommend. I didn't expect that to get a laugh. Oh, Ian, do you know it?
Haven't read it.
Okay.
Oh. All men should read this book.
Actually, that is true.
Everyone should read this book. But she talks about, as you must know, Ian, from reading it, the number one question that she gets asked by all women is, am I normal? Is this normal? And I think that's something that brings so many people so much shame around sex and what they like and it shuts down conversation. It shuts down, pursuing things. And I think we wanted to hopefully at least start a conversation around that with our show of let's get rid of this idea of what's normal. Let's take that off the table.
Although there was a moment as a showrunner when I was on set and I had to approve the pee, that.
Right.
So that was a moment for me where
we had to work through some of our own shame, I think, in making this. Yeah, but it was the props meetings were really fun on this show.
Oh my God, we need to have another panel on the props meetings on all your shows. What I want to do just to wrap things up for people who haven't...
no, don't end it.
I don't want to end it, but like... No, I'm going to put one more question in so we don't end it on P. I want to ask every single one of you to describe your show in one sentence for people who haven't seen it. How would you describe it? Lauren, I'm going to start with you.
No,
She's like,
come on. That sucks.
Oh my God, this is like a quiz. I didn't sign up. No quizzes.
I don't know. You're asking me to do a log line right now? I hate log lines so much.
Come on, let's do log line.
I'd rather write a script. Yeah. I don't know. What are we talking about?
All right, I'll come back to you.
Look, I mean, the thing is, and this is going to sound probably obnoxious, but I know our show, in simple terms, is like a rise to power story following this complicated gangster in Gotham City. But truly, and I think this is where I struggle a little bit, I do view our show as a lot more than that, of mixing tones, and it's ultimately a tragedy. And it's very emotional and character forward in so many ways. And so I guess my hope with the show is that you look at it and maybe you're looking at advertisements or the fact that it's called The Penguin and you're judging it and you're thinking it's something. And I really was hoping that by the end you'd be like, oh, this is not at all what I expected. And weirdly, I feel things. Or I'm disgusted by this man and I was charmed by him moments before. So this is why I'd rather write a script, which makes me whoever I am. But I'm bad at log lines also, so that's I'm skirting the question. Sorry, Josh.
You're good. Go on, Olivia.
All right.
Hands raised right there.
There we go. Two sisters diverged in the wood, brought back together.
So good.
Two sisters diverged in the woods, brought back together by murder, standing in front of each other, asking, is your truest self only somebody your sister could love?
Oh my God. Wow.
Dude, I can't follow that. I can't follow that.
Wow. Guys.
Oh my God, Nikki, you're going to have to practice.
I'm going to go. I can only go soulful after that. I'm definitely kind of okay, where is my WGA card? And so should somebody be cutting it up in this moment? I would say that I would hope that what people take away from our show is that it's a show about the humanity when dealing with somebody that is suffering from substance use disorder or the people that are loving them.
We love that.
Really good. I'm such an asshole for not answering this question.
Should we do?
One word
No.
each?
Do it at the same time. You know that thing? Yeah.
It's a show about coming
alive while coming.
That's really good.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
That is so good. Okay, Ian, now you're going to have to take it home.
Mine's boring. Ours is Menendez is Rashomon. It's all the it's the same. It's a story told from different perspectives, and no one will know the truth. The two people who know the truth. Two of them are in prison. Two of them are dead.
That's Ian Brennan from Netflix's Monsters, the Lyle and Erik Menendez Story, Lauren LaFranc from HBO's The Penguin, Elizabeth Merriweather and Kim Rosenstock from FX's Dying for Sex, Olivia Milch from Prime Video's The Better Sister, and Nikki Toscano from Peacock's Long Bright River. And that's it for this edition of Variety's Award Circuit podcast. Michael Schneider is the producer and Aaron Greenwald is the editor. Be sure to subscribe to the Award Circuit podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. Also, head on over to Variety.com and click on the Award Circuit tab to find the latest awards predictions and key races, as well as your daily fix of news, analysis, and reviews. For Jazz Tanke, Emily Longaretta, and Clayton Davis, I'm Michael Schneider, and we'll see you on the circuit.